guys, my name is Sergey with the Tabletop Warlords, and today we're going to be talking about one of the most cost-effective units in all of the Gar Empire, attack Scutters. But before we get into all that, you will have noticed that I have shaved my face. I will give you all several moments to emotionally acclimate to this shocking event. Now that we're all over that, let's talk about Scutters. Scutters are a Gar support choice, and they can actually be taken in all three different Gar factions. They're relatively similar in both function and role in all of these armies, and have very few rules differences, so I'm going to make this one video about all three factions. Whenever a difference will arise, I'll go over it as it comes up. Now, I've already said this is one of the most cost-effective units in Gar lists, and that is absolutely true. In the Gar Empire and Gar Rebels, this unit is only 91 points base, and in the Gar Exiles, it's only 95. Backing up that fairly small price point is an incredible stat line. This unit has an agility of 5, which is actually really good for a Gar armored unit. They have an accuracy of 5, which is standard across the board for Gar. This unit only has a strength of 1, but that's fairly standard for other units that fill the role that Scutters fill. The res is only 4 base, but in traditional Gar faction, it shoots all the way up to 10, which is really strong for such a cheap unit. Their commander has an initiative of 8, whereas the rest of the squad has an initiative of 7, which is fairly good, and they also have a command of 8, which is also fairly good. Their leader has the leader special rule, allowing him to reroll 1 failed res test. They're all large and crawlers. This does mean that this unit is going to struggle getting through most terrain. You're gonna want to keep them at least in alleyways between terrain pieces as much as humanly possible. The squad has scramble proof, which makes them immune to a lot of pan-human tricky plays, particularly the Subverter Matrix. They also have the flaw Plasma Reactor. This means that sometimes when they get hit by lucky hits, they'll explode and cause more explosions to chain through the unit. However, it doesn't happen that often, so it's not something you need to worry about too much. It's just kind of like rolling a 1 in D&D. Sometimes you critically miss. Additionally, there is one little bit of utility that I haven't mentioned yet with these guys. They are mounted units, which means they can dismount. Now, it's not often that you're going to want to get off of your Scutter and basically become a tiny outcast squad. But there are certain scenarios that require infantry squads to capture objectives. So if your back is against the wall, or if you just need 1 extra point to clinch a win, you can dismount and get an objective if you need it. But honestly, you can ignore this unit's stat line, although it is good, and you can ignore this unit's special rules, because what makes this unit so cost-effective is how it's equipped. It's a 3-man squad, and each one of those models has a Scourer Cannon. Scourer Cannons are hands down the best standard weapon in Antares space, and they're usually very expensive. Most of the time you're spending at least 200 points to get a squad with Scourer Cannons. What makes Scourer Cannons so good, you might ask? Well, they're super versatile and also super potent. It's kind of like a Swiss Army knife of awesome weapons. It has 3 distinct firing modes, the first of which is a concentrated shot. This is the only one of the firing modes that has an extreme range, and it caps out at 40. It's also the highest strike value shot, sitting at 4. This makes it useful when you're not close enough to use your other firing modes, or when you're going up against somebody with particularly heavy armor like a hazard squad. You can also sort of hunt light vehicles with it, but it really doesn't do anything against tanks. You actually have a way better mode for taking out vehicles further down the line. The next firing mode is called Dispersed Fire. This is kind of like your machine gun firing mode. It makes you rapid fire 3, which is really fantastic, and lowers your strike value down to 2. It also cuts off your extreme range, so now you're only at long range 30, effective range 20. This can be a very effective way of clearing out lower armored infantry when you're shooting at Gar outcasts or maybe even freeborn. This is a good way to put out a lot of casualties. But in my opinion, the most amazing firing mode is its final firing mode, Disruptor. This mode has the same range as the Dispersed Fire, but converts it from a machine gun to a blast weapon. It makes it blast D4, lowers its strike value further to 1, and gives it Disruptor. Disruptor is an amazing special rule. It means that anytime you're hit with this weapon, you take 2 pins instead of 1. Now, I said you're gonna have a better mode for taking out tanks. This is that mode. And that is because Disruptor pins actually affect heavily armored units, no matter how high their armor is. All of a sudden, an armor 15 tank isn't too scary when you can stack pin after pin after pin on it using disruptor weapons. That, coupled with the fact that a lot of Gar units do have disruptor weapons, means that Gar become this kind of terror weapon on the field allowing them to pin people out long before they kill them. When you're playing Gar, you're going to have a lot of wins based purely on psychological warfare, and that's actually a really fun playstyle. And the fact that this unit has Scour Cannons is what makes it so amazing. Like I said, you usually spend upwards of 200 points for squads with Scour Cannons, whereas this one is only 91 to 95. When I'm building lists, a lot of what I'm doing is trying to figure out how I can get the most power out of the least amount of points. And this unit is one of the units that just gives you the most bang for your buck. Now, unfortunately, in 2 out of the 3 lists that can field this unit, they are a limited choice. Gar Empire and Gar Rebels are not able to field a ton of these guys. For those of you who are new to the hobby, only 1 in 4 units in your army can be limited choices. This severely limits how many attack Scudder squads Gar Empire and Gar Rebels can field. Gar Exiles, on the other hand, do not have this problem. In Gar Exiles, this unit is not a limited choice, and Gar Exiles boasts a ton of support choices, which means that you can really spam this unit on the field if you want to play Exiles. If you are a fan of Scutters, I heavily recommend buying the Drone Scourge Returns so you can take a look at this awesome faction list. Now, if the Scutters army list entry ended there, they would be an awesome, cheap unit. But they also have a lot of really awesome upgrades that even further increases their cost effectiveness. The first upgrade you can take can only be taken in Gar Empire and Gar Rebels. For 26 points a model, you can add up to 2 Scutters to an Empire squad or only 1 Scudder to a Rebel squad. Now, most of the time I caution against adding models to a squad when you could add order dice to the bag by doing a whole nother squad. But in this situation, because these models are so cost effective, and because the squad is a limited choice, sometimes it can be a really great place to put some points just placing a points effective model on the field. Additionally, it's really easy to miss with your disruptor bombs, so sometimes having more shots going down the field, particularly before your Tectorus get into range, can be really helpful. The next upgrade can only be taken in Gar Exiles lists. To make up for the fact that Gar Exiles can only run minimum squads, they get the option to increase their leader from leader 1 to leader 2. I think I've said this in literally every single unit highlight. I don't recommend this upgrade. 10 points to get 1 more reroll is just not a great place to put your points when you can be putting it other places. The rest of this squad's upgrades can be taken by any faction. The most notable of these upgrades is the fact that you can give this squad plasma amps. What? I've talked about plasma amps a bunch on this channel, and they are super awesome. For 10 points, you can effectively make this squad mod 2 for 50% of the game. This squad is already super points effective, but the fact that you can spend 30 to 50 points making them double as points effective is absolutely berserk. Now, that being said, sometimes you're throwing attack Scutters in at the end of your list to fill in a points gap. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily required to run them with amps. Sometimes it's nice just to have a cheap, good unit, particularly in Gar that don't have a lot of cheap, good units. But if you have the points left over, this is an absolutely fantastic upgrade that I recommend taking whenever you can. The next upgrade is fairly situational. For 5 points a model, you can give this entire squad plasma dumps. Plasma dumps are a weird upgrade. You can activate them when you give your unit a down order, not a down reaction. When you activate a plasma dump, it sends out a roiling cloud of plasma around your unit, which makes all units shooting at them have -2 to their accuracy as if they were shooting through a battlefield. It also deals damage to any units nearby. Because this unit is so god-awful in melee, this can be some sort of a deterrent against charging them. Most of the time, I'd much rather just be running away or shooting at the guys that are about to charge me. Additionally, I often find this upgrade to be a lot more effective on something like a vehicle because it's only 5 points for the vehicle, whereas it's 15 points for an entire squad. But again, sometimes you have extra points left over in a Gar list, so it's 15 points might just be the thing that fills in the rest of your army. All of that put together makes an absolutely awesome unit for the Gar Empire list. I heavily recommend any Gar player having at least 1 attack Scudder squad laying around, but if you're playing Gar Exiles, I recommend having a lot more. Aesthetically, I absolutely love these models. I talk about how much I love space goblins all the time, and these are space goblins on weird crab bicycles. You don't get any stranger and more awesome than that. Additionally, they're fairly easy to paint well. They have a lot of large flat planes, and they have a couple places where there's a material shift from metal to like goblin flesh, so you can get some really great contrast in there. I have all of mine fitted with bomb racks on the back. They don't all come like this. That's just a little bit of personal flair I gave to mine because I really like the bomb rack model. Well, Well, I skipped saying it in the beginning because I needed you all to get used to my shaved face. But if you like this video, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe. But if you want to support the channel in the best way pan-humanly possible, go ahead and join our Patreon campaign. Our patrons are the lifeblood of our channel, and we couldn't appreciate you guys anymore. And if you want to purchase any of these Scutters, go ahead and hit the affiliate link right beneath this video. It'll bring you to the Warlords store, and anything you purchase there will give us, the Tabletop Warlords, a small commission. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the tabletop.